Welcome in. Today's deep dive is right up your alley.
Oh, yeah.
We're taking that fascination you have with street epistemology and
Okay,
looking at it through a brain science lens.
cool.
We're going beyond just how these conversations make people rethink things
Right.
and more into the what's actually going on in their heads.
It's easy to assume it's all about logic.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But the really compelling stuff, it happens in that space where our thinking and feeling, they kind of intertwine.
Okay.
And that's something street epistemology seems to tap into really well.
Okay, so it's more than just the thinking part of the brain being involved.
Yeah.
Paint me a picture. What areas are we talking about here?
Think of it like a city,
Mm-hmm.
you know, each region with its own specialty.
Okay.
Your prefrontal cortex,
Uh-huh.
that's the executive suite,
Okay.
handling critical thinking,
Right.
decision-making,
Yeah.
all super active during these dialogues.
Makes sense.
Then you've got the amygdala, your brain's security system,
Right.
constantly scanning for threats,
Right.
uncertainty like the kind that comes with challenging beliefs. That can set it off.
Interesting. So knowing that, if you're trying to have a productive conversation about a sensitive topic,
Right.
easing in with some trust building beforehand could help prevent someone from getting defensive.
Precisely. You're hoping to calm that amygdala response,
Okay.
which allows the prefrontal cortex to stay engaged and
Yeah.
open to new information.
That's a great takeaway for anyone listening who uses street epistemology.
Yeah.
Don't go straight for the jugular. Warm up those brain pathways first.
Right.
And what about memory? Does that come into play at all?
Absolutely. The hippocampus, your brain's librarian.
Okay.
Busy pulling up memories that might relate to the beliefs being discussed,
Right.
which can either reinforce or challenge what's being said.
Interesting. Okay, so we've got the executive suite.
Yes.
We've got the security system, the library. What's happening in these areas when someone hits that aha moment?
Yeah.
That point of aporia where they're really reconsidering things.
It's like a dance,
Okay.
not just a light switch.
Okay.
The prefrontal cortex is comparing new information to old,
Okay.
while the anterior cingulate cortex, think of it as your brain's error detector,
Okay.
might be going off if it senses inconsistencies.
And that probably feels uncomfortable, right? I know when I'm hit with something that challenges my worldview, it can be a bit jarring.
It can't be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You might even see it externally.
Oh, really?
Someone might pause,
Okay.
look away as if searching for something.
Interesting.
That's their brain shifting from autopilot to deep thought,
Wow.
thanks to those signals from the anterior cingulate cortex.
That makes me think about those moments of silence during those conversations. It can be tempting to fill that space,
Right. Yeah.
but maybe letting it breathe is actually giving the other person's brain a chance to catch up.
Exactly. You're letting their prefrontal cortex integrate these new perspectives
Right.
without feeling pressured. Now, you've probably noticed that some people seem more open to this kind of deep reflection than others, right?
Yeah, definitely. Some people seem to really embrace it and others not so much.
Right. And that's where doxastic openness comes in.
Okay, let's unpack that. It sounds like more than just being open-minded.
It is. Someone with high doxastic openness is essentially wired for belief revision.
Okay.
Their neural pathways are primed to consider new information.
Interesting.
It's like their brain is saying, hit me with your best shot. I'm ready to update my thinking.
So it's almost like they enjoy those moments of aporia, seeing it as a learning opportunity rather than a threat.
Precisely. Some research even suggests their brains are better at spotting errors in their own thinking. So they're primed to be convinced in a way.
Wow.
It's not just personality.
Yeah.
It's how their brains are wired.
That's fascinating. And it makes me think about this strategy I've been using where I ask people to imagine a shared future based on a particular belief.
Okay, yeah.
I'm wondering if that plays into this doxastic openness at all.
It very well could.
Yeah.
When you ask someone to envision that shared future, you're activating their medial prefrontal cortex,
Okay.
which is all about social cognition, imagining the perspectives of others.
So instead of it just being about their own internal world, it forces them to zoom out and see how their beliefs impact a larger group.
And not just intellectually,
Okay.
but emotionally too. That anterior cingulate cortex we talked about.
Yeah.
It also lights up when we're considering our values and how our actions affect others.
This is all making me rethink how I approach these conversations. So by painting this picture of a shared future, I'm engaging not just logic, but their empathy and values as well.
Exactly. And because emotions are powerful drivers, This approach could create a more fertile ground for belief change.
Interesting.
It's like you're giving their brain a new experience to process,
Right.
rather than just more information to debate.
Okay, so we've laid some groundwork here. We've got these different areas of the brain all doing their thing during a street epistemology conversation.
Right.
But what happens when we bring in things like trust and personal connection?
Yeah.
I know from experience those are crucial, but what's the neuroscience behind that?
That's where things get really interesting. When we feel connected to someone, our brains release oxytocin.
Okay.
That's the bonding hormone.
Right.
One of the things it does is reduce activity in the amygdala,
Okay.
that fear center we were talking about earlier.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, creating a safe space where the other person feels heard,
Yeah.
even when dealing with tough topics, that can actually help prevent their brain from going into defense mode.
You got it. A calmer amygdala means a more active prefrontal cortex, which
Right.
is exactly what you want when you're trying to encourage open-mindedness.
I've noticed that sharing personal anecdotes, especially ones that have some emotional weight to them, yeah.
Often seems to create that openness. Is there something to that?
You're tapping into something very powerful there. Studies show that when we share those kinds of personal stories, our brains release not just oxytocin,
Okay.
but dopamine too.
Oh, wow.
That's linked to pleasure and reward.
So they're not just connecting with me on a human level. Their brain is actually getting a little hit of feel-good chemicals.
Right.
No wonder those conversations seem to flow better.
Yeah. And it gets even more wild.
Okay.
When we hear a story that resonates with us,
Yeah.
our brains don't just passively listen. They actually simulate the experience as if it's happening to us.
Wait, seriously. So if I'm telling you about a time I wrestle with a belief,
Yeah.
your brain is partially mirroring that experience in that moment.
In a sense, yes. This neural mirroring.
Wow.
It's how we build empathy and understanding. And when someone feels understood,
Right.
they're far more likely to be receptive to new ideas. So even if someone comes into a street epistemology dialogue with their defenses up,
Right.
by building trust and shared experience,
Yeah.
I might be able to nudge their brain into a more open state.
You're getting it. It's not just about logic. It's about engaging the whole person,
Right.
their emotions, their memories, even their brain chemistry. That's where the real magic of these conversations lies.
Okay, back to this shared future idea for a minute.
Okay.
We've talked about the brain regions it activates, but how does that translate into actually changing someone's beliefs?
Think of it like this. When you ask someone to envision that world shaped by their belief,
Okay.
you're basically creating a mental simulation for them.
Yeah.
It lets them test drive their belief in a safe space.
A flight simulator for beliefs. I like it.
Exactly. They get to explore the potential consequences of that belief playing out,
Right.
good and bad.
And their brain might start picking up on things they hadn't considered before,
Yeah,
inconsistencies, maybe even negative consequences they hadn't anticipated.
right. That anterior cingulate cortex, your brain's error detector,
Right.
it's working overtime during those simulations.
So if the world they're imagining doesn't actually align with their deeper values,
Yeah.
that conflict will be pretty apparent.
And that's where those powerful aha moments can happen.
Right.
They realize that what they believe might not be leading them towards the kind of world they want to see.
This is all incredibly helpful.
Good, good.
But I'm wondering, how does this shared future tactic work for beliefs that aren't about a literal world?
Right.
Like, what about if someone believes in karma?
Yeah.
It's more of an abstract concept.
You raise a good point. It's not always about a physical world.
Right.
Even with abstract concepts like karma, you can still engage those neural pathways related to values and personal experience.
So instead of, what would a world where everyone believed in karma look like?
Yeah.
Maybe it's, what would a life lived in accordance with karma look like?
Precisely. You're still prompting them to envision a shared future. But in this case, it's a future of experience, of moving through the world based on those principles.
That's a great distinction. It's not always about a literal world, but about the consequences of those beliefs, whatever they may be.
Right.
This is giving me so much to think about.
Yeah.
But I'm also aware that sometimes, even when someone's open to this kind of exploration,
Yeah.
they might just not have the information or experience to grasp a new perspective.
That's an important consideration. Our brains can only work with the information they have.
Of course, yeah.
If someone's worldview is built on a limited set of experiences.
Right.
It's only natural for them to struggle with concepts that challenge those foundations.
So it's not always about intelligence or willingness.
Right.
Sometimes it's about exposure,
Yeah,
about needing a bigger picture.
exactly. And that's where these techniques, especially your shared future strategy, can be so valuable.
Because by exploring that shared future, even if it's uncomfortable or unfamiliar at first,
Yeah.
we're helping someone expand their brain's database, so to speak.
You've got it. You're guiding them through a process of cognitive expansion.
Wow.
Their brain is literally building new connections,
Mm.
which can lead to deeper understanding and empathy.
The brain's capacity for change really is amazing. But it makes me wonder about the potential downsides.
Yeah.
If our brains are so adaptable, couldn't this ability be manipulated or exploited?
That's an incredibly important question,
Yeah.
and something to be mindful of as we learn more about how these techniques can be applied. Shall we dive into that a bit further?
It is a bit of a chilling thought
Yeah.
that these techniques could be used in ways that aren't so well-intentioned.
It's true. Like any tool, understanding how the brain works,
All right.
it can be a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
It can be used to enlighten
Right.
or to manipulate,
That's what I appreciate about street epistemology, though. It's not about forcing beliefs on anyone.
right?
It's about providing a framework for self-reflection.
Right.
I guess the question is, as we uncover more about the brain, how do we make sure these tools are used responsibly?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
A good place to start is awareness,
Okay.
which is exactly what we're doing right now.
Right.
Understanding the potential impact of these techniques, good and bad,
Right.
helps us use them ethically
Right.
and recognize when they might be misused.
It's like a call for more mindful communication. We need to be aware not just of what we're saying,
Right.
but how those words, especially with this knowledge of the brain,
Right.
might be landing for someone else on a neurological level.
Precisely. And it's not just about protecting others from manipulation.
Right.
It's about protecting ourselves, too.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Understanding how our own brains can be influenced
Right.
helps us be more discerning with the information we take in.
Right.
We become less susceptible to persuasion tactics,
Right. Right.
even unintentional ones.
So it's about empowering ourselves and the people we engage with
Yeah.
to create a world where we're all more aware of the mental machinery at play.
Exactly. Knowledge, especially self-knowledge,
Right.
is a powerful tool against manipulation.
Yeah.
The more we understand about our own minds and the minds of others,
Right.
the better equipped we are to navigate these complex waters
Right.
of belief, communication, and connection.
This deep dive has really given me a lot to think about.
Good, good.
I've gained a deeper understanding not only of street epistemology,
Right.
but also of the responsibility that comes with understanding how our brains work.
And that's perhaps the most valuable takeaway of all.
Yeah.
As we continue to explore the inner workings of our minds,
Right.
we have to remember that knowledge is powerful.
Yeah.
It can illuminate the path to understanding,
Right.
but it can also be mishandled, leading to unintended consequences.
So as we wrap up here, what's one final thought you'd leave our listeners with as they continue to explore these ideas?
Here's something to ponder. The next time you're in a conversation, especially one about beliefs or values,
Yeah.
pay attention not only to the words being spoken,
Right.
but to the subtle cues of your own mind.
Okay.
Notice what piques your interest,
Yeah.
what triggers resistance,
Right.
what sparks a feeling of genuine connection.
Okay.
By becoming keen observers of our own mental processes,
Right.
we unlock a deeper level of self-awareness that can profoundly impact how we communicate and connect with the world around us.
It's about turning inward to better understand the why behind our own beliefs and carrying that awareness into every interaction. Such great advice to end on. This has been an incredible journey. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those conversations flowing.